Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling, and I'm your host. We got them now. There's no denying the fact that they don't think climate change is that big of a deal. It turns out that they've cut funding to nearly $500 million to the electrical buses, the public transportation. They've stopped funding it. So it's like they want to punish you for using gas in your car, but then they're stopping public transit funding. So now you're paying the carbon tax on your car forever. Right, like that's what it seems like. I mean, it comes right from the NDP, no doubt. Like, you know what I mean? Because like I told you, some of the NDP are not necessarily 100% fully behind Jagmeet Singh's being tied to the apron strings of the Liberal Party. And I think that it's time that we started to call them out on their hypocrisy. How they quietly have made so many changes in this last budget. It's not even funny. Like it is. It's almost to the point that it's almost like two separate parties made these various budgets. However, before we get into it, I would encourage you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'm trying to raise a little bit of money to buy some new equipment. So there's a GoFundMe. And if you want to continually support the channel, there's memberships. All right. So this is the NDP guy, Taylor Bacharach, talking to Sean Fraser, the transportation minister, about some of the changes that are in the current budget that they're trying to pass. You know, just take a listen. It'll shock you when you consider. I want you to realize how many times you've heard the Liberals say that anybody who doesn't agree with their environmental policy is basically, hates the world.
I met recently with sustainable transportation advocates, and they expressed dismay that the latest budget contains a cut to a couple of key transit funds. The first of which is the Zero Emissions Transit Fund, which is used to purchase electric school buses and electric transit buses. In their view, this fund has been reduced at a time when the impacts of climate change are being felt right across the country, and the Commissioner for the Environment and Sustainable Development has highlighted that your government is not on track to meet its emissions targets. Why is this government cutting back on the purchase of clean technology at a time when we need to be accelerating our action on climate change?
That's a good question.
As we see certain programs come online, the total amount that we're investing in green public transit opportunities is going to significantly increase. You can come to the conclusion, there's less money in this fund this year as compared to last year. There may be enhanced eligibility as the permanent public transit fund comes online to get some of the same projects done.
These funds were announced at certain amounts, and now those amounts have been reduced. And so I don't see, like, the permanent public transit fund is also a fixed amount that's been announced. I'm just wondering why the Zero Emissions Transit Fund went from $2.75 billion to $2.4 billion.
So as part of the effort when we were seeking to refocus government spending, so over the next number of years, particularly as the funding comes online in 2026, you're going to see a consistent, reliable program for the long term that municipalities can rely upon.
So you heard him. You might in the future see some changes that will allow you to refocus your efforts and have something consistent that they can rely on. But I thought the money was put in the last budget so that people could have something to rely on. And now you're telling me that there's new changes that you quietly made without announcing to anybody will not happen until 2026. So you're clawing back money that you need in an effort to, what was it you said? Cut corners or rebalance the budget. And you didn't say either of those things, but I know what you meant. You were trying to claw back money so that you can make your departments viable because you're flat broke, because you don't have any more. The banks are closed, the taxpayers are closed, and you are flat broke. And all of these promises that you made and all of these high and mighty virtue signaling that you made about the environment all go out the window when you're flat broke. Now you know what it feels like to have to put gas in your car when you don't got any money. But it seems to me very, very strange that you will allow the buses to run, but you will put that program on pause, but not the carbon tax. The carbon tax cannot go on pause no matter what, no matter what. Suspicious. Now you'll hear about another cut they made to a different electric car program electric mass transportation program. Remember, these programs are specifically about electric mass transportation, which is what you heard Guilbeault talk about for most of the year, how wonderful these plans are. And if you can't put on roller ski or snow skis and whatnot to go get your groceries, then you're some kind of a horrible human being.
So similarly, and there are issues with the Permanent Public Transit Fund, I'm not going to have time to get into them this round, but similarly, the Rural Transit Solutions Fund, this is one that impacts communities in the riding I represent, went from $250 million to $150 million. So 3 years after Greyhound pulled its service entirely from Canada, and we have poorer bus service across the country in rural communities than we have in, 50, 60, 70 years, the government is pulling back on the key offering that they promised communities was going to help them recover from the withdrawal of Greyhound services. Why has the Rural Transit Solutions Fund been reduced?
Some of this policy work remains to be finalized, but by establishing more reliable criteria as part of the Permanent Public Transit Fund that smaller communities are eligible for, which we're working to develop right now. So you should expect to see, as the rollout of that fund comes to life, that there will be a feature designed specifically for rural communities.
So you cut out their money without a plan as well. So now you've cut out bus money for schools and for parts of municipalities that you screamed about, pounding on your chest, talking about how you guys are the virtue of the world. And now when you say rural communities are not getting any money for mass transportation. So you're saying that they have to now buy cars, which you're putting taxes on left, right, and center. This kind of makes it a little suspicious in my mind. This kind of makes it seem like it's a little bit circumspect. And it's one thing to say, well, we're clawing back the money, but it's another thing to say, well, listen to the words that he's using, right? They're gonna, and we're hoping to roll it out. And maybe in a minute it's gonna happen. And don't worry about it. In 2026, we're gonna re-roll out a new plan that's gonna somehow solve the problem. So last year, you wanted everybody to give you all this money and to make all these Canadians to make all these sacrifices, even though our economy and the life that we're living is in dire straits and we are in hardship. And all the while, you guys are not doing what you said you were going to do because you can't afford it. So how come you can afford it, but you can't afford it, but we can somehow? Practice what you preach. That's what leaders do. Now you'll love this next one. I can't even believe the foolishness of this next comment coming out of this guy's mouth. If you don't believe that he's full of BS, nothing will convince you. If you don't listen to this, and I don't care what your political stripe is, in a minute you're going to hear some of the greatest BS you ever heard in your life, and he's going to do it with a complete straight face.
Folks in Toronto are very concerned about the aging subway cars on the Bloor line. The province and the city had a plan to replace those cars, but Toronto had to cancel its RFP because the feds wouldn't come to the table with the funds required to make the purchase. And this affects not only commuters, but also people in Thunder Bay who work for Alstom that would be manufacturing these subway cars. Why has your government allowed this key transit infrastructure to crumble and left workers wondering about the future of these key manufacturing jobs?
So when we're going to make major investments in a city's public transit system, which is primarily within a municipal or provincial range of jurisdiction, we want to make sure that we're setting it up for long-term success and understand what the long-term plans are. That's where the Permanent Public Transit Fund is going to come in. We expect, although money flows in 2026, that we'll be able to book our first deals this calendar year because of the lead time.
So again, with the term lead time, right? He loves to say that. Well, it's lead time. He says it on the houses. He says it on everything. But did you just hear him say that he wanted to make sure that the Toronto transit system was a viable program? They wanted cars for the Bloor line in Toronto, which I did a little research. The Toronto subway system, on average, Monday to Friday, only handles 1.7 million passengers, 1.7 million people every day use Toronto. Now, if you've never been to Toronto, but if you've never lived in Toronto, then you wouldn't understand. But if you live in Toronto, you know that when you get on the bus in Toronto, it's a millionaire in one seat. It's a person who's flat broke in another seat. Everybody uses public transit in Toronto, even the rich, because it is just easier to park. It's a nightmare to park in Toronto. It's not only is it sometimes hard to find parking, most of them are taken taken up, but you have to pay for it. And so it's just simpler. It's a very good, strong transit system. And it's just, and I don't say to you that they're doing that to go to the baseball game, but they are well, actually they would do that to go to the baseball game. I am saying to you that they come in on the GO train en masse. They come in down from Brampton. They come down from all these cities all day long into the heart of Canada's banking industry, and they do it on the public transit. You know what I mean? So don't go trying to convince yourself that it's not a very, very utilized system. It's probably one of the greatest examples of diverse people using a public transit system in all of, certainly in Canada. I won't say the world, but certainly in Canada. I mean, you might find comparable in, say, New York, right? But this guy just says, well, we want to make sure, before we invest, we want to make sure that the system is going to be working. The Bloor line opened February 28th, 1963. 1963, February 28th, the Bloor subway line opened. So I'm wondering, Mr. Fraser, how long does a subway system have to be running for you to think that it's going to be a viable investment? How long do you need? Oh, and on average, the Bloor line is only, I wrote it down, 404,397. That's their average weekly. From Monday to Friday. That's not Saturday and Sunday. That's just the weekend. That's just what people are using to get to work, is basically what I mean, or school or whatever. You know what I mean? Not the weekends. It's nearly 500,000 people going through the Bloor line and almost 2 million people using the subway system. And that's just the underground. There's no buses included in those numbers. There's no GO train included in those numbers. Plenty of people get off the GO train in downtown Toronto, CN Station, and they walk to work a few blocks. But this guy, he just knows that there's no money. So they canceled it, right? Because they can't afford it. And if any of you are out there right now listening to this and you want to tell yourself that there's something that I don't understand, remember this. People like me have been warning you from the beginning that there's no money in socialism. And now the roosters are coming home to roost, right? The money is gone. There's none left, and they are starting to scale back. And this is what will happen with the lunch programs. This is what will happen with the schooling programs. They will begin to tell you that there's not as much money, so they're going to have to stop giving so many things. Right now, it's all wonderful. It's the honeymoon. They're trying to convince you that they're going to lead you down the road, but 1 minute in a minute you're going to have to realize that they're flat broke, that there is no money, and that the only thing that they're going to be able to do is start clawing back, what they call clawing back. And this is a great example, right? They said, oh no, we're going to put $2.75 billion into the green buses, and we're going to put buses in all of the rural areas because Greyhound is gone and people need to get around, so they won't use cars, right? And then all of a sudden, no, we're going to claw back nearly $3 billion or $300 million in one and at least $100 million in the other. No, sorry, it was $3.75 million and $100 million in one and $100 million in the other. Now, when you get these programs laying off the ground, if you get $150 million, you need $50 million just to get it off the ground. So you basically gutted that system. That system's got nothing. That system is just there right now taking applications and doing absolutely nothing else. So you're telling me that these systems are so important. You're telling Canadians that they have to make every sacrifice in the single solitary world, that they have to change the way their electricity goes into their house. They have to stop using fuel to put gas in their house. You'd have to do all these sacrifices so that you can tell yourself that you're a virtue single and that your generations down the road, blah, 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 blah. And it turns out that you're not doing anything of the sort. Turns out that you're quietly cutting back all of the money required to get these systems off the ground and doing absolutely nothing about it. In fact, you're just saying the same thing you've been saying for years now, since 2019. It's coming in a minute. Once they get off the ground, once they get launched, blah, blah, blah. The check is in the mail, we used to say. It's coming around the corner. You know what I mean? It'll be here tomorrow, which never shows up. Tomorrow never comes. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. And this is proof positive. And they know it. They just send in their chief bullshit. They send in a chief BS artist to try and make you think that he's being serious because he talks like I'm talking right now, right? Really fast and really articulate, and makes you, if you're from Nova Scotia, everybody talks this way. So there's nothing new there. It's not a surprise. It just makes people think that you got the gift of the gab, and that's all there is to it. And anybody that is from down that way knows that. They listen to a guy like this and they can hear him feeding you the crap, the BS, which is not the word that they would be using, but I'm trying to keep it clean. So there you have it. Caught in their own trap. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you all for listening. I would appreciate it if you would like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with your friends. I'll talk to you next time.